Perhaps the simplest place to get started in picking apart the motor system is in the gross control of our extremities, such as our legs and arms. Such movement occurs when motor neurons innervating muscle fibers deliver impulses that stimulate muscle contraction. These motor neurons have their cell bodies in the spinal cord and the brainstem. They're called lower motor neurons to distinguish them from upper motor neurons, which project down from cortex and inform motor activity through these lower motor neurons. As such, lower motor neurons, which are often also called alpha motor neurons, form the final common pathway for all behavior, causing the muscle contractions that generate force. Each alpha motor neuron exerts considerable influence over the muscle's activity because one motor neuron axon innervates a collection of myocytes, or muscle fibers, in a given muscle. In this schematic, each motor neuron is shown innervating multiple muscle fibers. In reality, however, the number of muscle fibers innervated is generally in the hundreds or even thousands of fibers. A given motor neuron and a set of muscle fibers it contacts are together called a motor unit. In the schematic, the red motor neuron and the muscle fibers it contacts make up one unit, while the blue motor neuron and the muscle fibers it contacts make up another unit. An impulse sent down a particular axon, for instance, the red axon, will drive activity in each muscle fiber that the axon contacts, every muscle fiber in the motor unit. There are many more muscle fibers in a single muscle than are innervated by a single motor neuron. Thus, every muscle consists of muscle fibers from multiple different motor units. The collective set of motor neurons whose axons control all the muscle fibers in a single muscle, such as the biceps or triceps, are called a motor neuron pool. Here, the red motor neuron and the blue motor neuron are part of the same motor neuron pool. The motor units comprising a motor neuron pool come in various shapes and sizes, with each motor neuron innervating a different number of muscle fibers. This is how different lower motor neurons are able to generate different levels of force. Motor neurons projecting to the gastrocnemius muscle in the back of the lower leg, for instance, innervate thousands of muscle fibers. As a result, a single impulse sent to the gastrocnemius muscle can generate quite a bit of force. For comparison, on the other end of the spectrum, motor neurons projecting to the muscles controlling the fine movement of the eye, the extraocular muscles, synapse on as few as 3 muscle fibers. The differential size of motor units within a motor pool also allows for graded control of motor activity. Different sized motor units in a given muscle structure, such as the biceps or the triceps, are recruited in order from smallest to largest. This recruitment pattern, known as Henneman's size principle, allows you to increase the amount of muscle contraction until you are exerting just enough force for a given action, but not overdoing it. The nervous system's ability to recruit successfully larger numbers of neurons gives our muscles the ability to generate both small and large forces without necessarily losing either strength or fine control. Anatomically, most alpha motor neurons have their heads in the ventral horn of the spinal cord. They're arranged across the ventral horn in 3 maps. First is a segmental map, which places a motor neuron along the rostrocaudal, or head-to-tail, axis of the spinal cord in line with the rostrocaudal position of the muscle fiber it innervates. Note the 4 main divisions of the spinal cord: cervical, thoracic, lumbar, and sacral. Motor neurons in the cervical spinal cord control the head and neck. Motor neurons in the thoracic spinal cord control the trunk. Motor neurons in the lumbar spinal cord control the front of the legs. And motor neurons in the sacral spinal cord control back leg muscles, as well as the bladder, bowel, and sexual muscles. You can see that the motor neurons are arranged along the spinal cord parallel to the muscles they innervate. The other 2 maps place the motor neuron within the gray matter of the spinal cord at a given rostrocaudal level. Let's take a look at a cross-section view of the spinal cord to see these 2 maps. The second map is a mediolateral map, which places the motor neurons in the gray matter in the spinal cord relative to how far the muscles they innervate are from the center of the body axis. Finally, third is a flexor to extensor map, in which muscles that cause joints to bend or flex are located in the upper part of the ventral horn, and those that cause joints to extend or straighten are located in the lower part. Thus, you can reliably estimate a motor nucleus's location in the spinal cord based on the bodily location and function of the muscle it innervates. Now that we have some understanding of how a given lower motor neuron generates muscle output, let's consider what sort of inputs drive motor neuron activity. Lower motor neurons respond to and are controlled by inputs from three main sources: the dorsal root ganglion cells of the sensory system, the excitatory and inhibitory spinal interneurons, which do not project outside of the intermediate area, and the upper motor neurons, which project directly from higher motor centers such as the brainstem and motor cortex. The sum input generated from these three sources determines the final activity of the lower motor neuron.